I just welcome to the Own Your Healthcare Masterclass. I am Jessica Ardeal with the lovely Lynn Misch. Good morning, and thank you. I'm so excited that we've gotten to this point here. This has been building since the first of the year, and we have been meeting up and gathering and getting your feedback. And thank you for your participation too. Really appreciate you. We had sent that survey out just to get an idea of the topics that you're most interested in. And the integrative medicine piece really took the cake with the most interest at 85%. Coming in second was the conscious conversations with healthcare providers. To me, that's really exciting. It tells me that this is a great community of people that are looking to own their healthcare and move that consciousness forward and claiming it in their own lives and getting interactive with the team that you have as a provider and participant. And Lynn, hi Lynn.
Hi, Jess. Happy morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. And you have a really incredible journey into integrative medicine yourself, right? Starting with the practice of medicine and integrating that into your own life. And I love how you're here representing how owning your healthcare can and does make a difference and can renew your life in so many ways. And I also want to invite people to flip the script on what the story is, right? You can, in a moment's decision, run a different storyline in your own mind. So whatever you're facing, if it's a chronic health condition or if you have any unknown mystery that you're facing, whatever it is that's coming up for you, integrative medicine is a great way to start to bring in an approach that works and is tailored to you. And individualizing healthcare, I think, is really the priority of what comes down to the ownership, right? This is where we get to individualize it. But just starting off, generally speaking, Lynn, what would you like to share in your journey here of how integrative medicine made a difference for you?
Oh gosh, I think, and I shared it when I shared one of the parts of my story when I had breast cancer, and I call myself a breast cancer thriver. And for whatever reason, intuitively, I got a hit, and it said, um, seek out a integrative practitioner. And at the time, I was working with in health promotion. I was working with a pharmacist who was a nutritionist and her husband. And I went to her, my friend Sunday, and I asked her if she knew of anyone, and she recommended Suzanne Wazauskas, Dr. Wazauskas. And so I went up to see Dr. Wazauskas, and that essentially was my really my starting point in integrative medicine. And that is like a very long time ago, and really learned to incorporate that into my practice today. And so I then sought out a series of different providers, an acupuncturist, massage therapist, which I'd seen for years. But along the way, I was seeing an acupuncturist. I was supposed to have hand surgery because I had a trigger thumb. And that was in 2008. And I can remember telling someone about that, and they handed me a card for an acupuncturist. And I never did have hand surgery. I had acupuncture, and it completely restored my thumb. And then getting more involved in all of it and understanding that even in Oriental medicine, that the body and all of its organs have they all have significance, and they all work together, and they all have a color and a frequency and an emotion and all these different kinds of things that are fascinating to get into. And so I think the piece of integrative medicine, the piece of integrative to me means that it's like connecting all of the pieces. And I think it's interesting in allopathic medicine because what we often look at is it's very segmented. We look at the heart as its own entity, and we look at the kidney as its own entity. And when we don't look at the system as an integrated whole a lot of times. There are points that you do that. But I really think it's interesting because in integrative medicine, you really do look at the whole system, which is why I like nursing, because nursing's holistic. And so, and it's, I think that's interesting because it looks at the whole person and all of the domains of the individual. So anyway, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of it, community wise, family wise. So you really look at that integrated whole because that's how you help someone heal. So that's also something that I think, and I think there's so many things that are, we're really complicated, but I think we can utilize different facets of this and really help people understand that there are important aspects to healing, right? And that's why we're all here. We're all healing on some level or another.
I
All of
love
it.
the piece that you shared about connecting the pieces, right? And my chunks are running around, which is why my screen, they're celebrating here the masterclass with us. Anyway, so connecting the pieces. For me, right, I don't know when there was a time where integrative medicine wasn't a part of my life, right? That's how I grew up. And so now in my 40s, being exploring the allopathic medical traditional route, I was surprised how segmented the practice is, right? And so having a symptom or an expression maybe 3 inches from the area that the doctor specializes in, all of a sudden that I don't do that, you'll go to someone else now. And it's just curious to me when, especially in pain management, right? How can we get curious about the pain instead of covering it up? And that to me is a really fascinating part too. How can we get that integrated piece in so we're not just covering up, but connecting the
Oh,
dots?
that's so important, and I think you just captured so much of that because that's really important. We cover so much of it. We're always, rather than looking at, and that was the discussion I had with the student yesterday because it's moving so fast. And it's really interesting because rather than looking at really the source of what's happening, really going to that piece and that part of, like you said, the pain, identifying where is it really stemming from? Why is that? Or depression, where's that coming from? What is the underlying component in that, and how can we help to connect the dots? And back to a story years ago, I was working in a cardiac unit with open heart patients, and I can remember I had a patient that I needed some Lasix. It's a diuretic, and I went to one of the docs and I said, "Can you?" Because he was seeing this patient. I said, "Can you give me some Lasix for this patient because they're having trouble breathing? They were a little heart failure." And he looked at me and he goes, "Lynn, I cover from here to here." And I'm like, "The heart is from there to there. It is." It's in there. That's where it is. That's what I want. Please help me. Please help him. And it was it was just interesting because it really then for me, really, I started to understand how differentiated it is, which I thought was interesting. That was just it's like you have those little moments that are hallmarks in where you are and what you're doing. But yeah, I think pain is a really important aspect. Where is that pain stemming from? Why are we having that pain? Is it an acute injury, right? Did it just happen? Or do we have a long-term chronic issue that's developed because a lot of times pain is signaling us to let us look at other elements that may be occurring in the body, right? It's trying to tell us something.
And it leaves that integrative piece in our own hands, right? To get curious and explore more, or have someone hand that card of an acupuncturist or another modality to explore. And the piece that for me, it always comes back to the Chinese medicine, the 5 element theory, combining the different organs, systems, and emotions, and giving us a way to connect within our own experience at a deeper level, going deeper into our body's own recording systems and memory banks, and being able to integrate those threads that may have become fragmented just because of life, and bringing back that wholeness so that we can carry that. And so I think integrative medicine is in our own hands to be in that empowerment with what else can I do? What else can I consider and think about and incorporate too, right? And there's so many different great modalities. It's not about finding the one thing that's going to work, that across the board it might work for you, but everybody is so different with what they need. And I think that's part of the fascination of the journey, is what is going to work for you. and why are you going through what you're going through, right? What is that individual journey for you?
Yeah, it was interesting because that was another piece of the discussion yesterday, because you can have, you know, patients present with the same problem, the same diagnosis, right? You can have patients present with breast cancer, let's say, and there's so many different facets to breast cancer. But you can have a patients present with breast cancer, and they may be all in the same place of that disease process, but they're going to come at it and feel differently about that whole process. So it isn't just that disease process, it's how it impacts the whole of that womanhood, that individual, what does that mean to them? And it's really important to, I think, and that's what we're trying to get to, I think, in these discussions and in these classes, is what does all of this mean? How does it influence and impact you, and how do you feel about it? Because it's so important to identify your own emotions in the trajectory of where you're at in your life, right? And sometimes that's easier than others. Sometimes even connecting to what those emotions are trying to tell us. It's like when I listened to that little voice telling me, go see an integrative practitioner. I didn't even know what that was about. It's like I was just following that intuitive hit, and I did both. And so that's another piece of the integrative route, is I not only did the integrative approach, or the holistic, or the alternative practitioner, whatever it's called, but I also did traditional allopathic medicine. So I combined the two elements. And so I've done a lot of that in my own um, aspects of different things that I've encountered along the way. And I think the other thing that's really important is we oftentimes stray away from this whole body, because things are so complicated. We get so easily distracted in the world around us. I think that's the other piece of it, is that I find myself, like right now, I'm dealing with some issues. I have a lovely 95-year-old mother that's going through some really dynamic healthcare changes, and she's such a little force of nature. And she's just a little thing. She's just a little thing, and she's just been this amazing person. I can't do this because I'll cry. But she's just been just with it, I guess, cognitively intact, all those kinds of wonderful things. And she fell about, it's a month ago now, broke her leg. And it has really caused some changes dynamically, to watch that system go through the challenges. And she's gone through some challenges in the last 2 years, and I'm like, at her age, how she even made it through all this? Just that fierce spirit. I mean, that's the other piece that's amazing with the human being, the integrity, the humanity that we have. But it's that spirit that we have that is such an integral part of who we are and how we function, and to find that fire again, to find that spirit, and she's got that even in the moments of whatever's happening with her. She's kind of interesting because she keeps telling us, this is interesting, the last couple of days, she keeps telling us at 3 in the morning, because she usually has to get up or have assistants to go to the bathroom. And she keeps telling us that this man is coming in jeans and a jacket and helping her to the bathroom. And she's living in assisted living. And there are no men in this assisted living. And so my sister and I were asking, my sister went and talked to administration and asked, I asked some of the aides that are there and all this kind of thing. And I said to my friend yesterday, I said, do you think maybe it's an angel coming in? It sounds really funny. I said, but you wonder, you know, what she's really experiencing right now. As somebody coming in whatever your belief system is. I think that's so powerful, that belief system, and the power of that. But I wonder, and she doesn't have a name, and it would be different if, and one of the girls said to me, well, maybe it's a manly aid, maybe that's what she's seeing. And she described this person having jeans and a jacket on. And I'm like, oh my goodness, who is this showing up? It's interesting. So we're trying to get her to come up with a name of who this is, and she doesn't have a name. So just, we're amazing. And so it's really finding the messages and all of that, and what does that mean, and it does it have a meaning for you? But I thought I'd share that because I just, she's amazing. So I thought I'd share a little bit about my story because it's been I'm grateful to have her as a mom, um, and to see her tenacity and her human spirit is remarkable. And I
And
see.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
You're okay. No, no, no.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
hear what you said lastly. What, can you repeat it?
I think to see it a lot, like when I've worked with patients, I think, because I've been at all different stages in patients' transitions, people's transitions, and it's interesting because I think that it's amazing when you see the force of the human spirit, the force of whatever this life force is energetically. And that's the other piece of integrative medicine that I really love, is that we are energetic beings. We have this amazing energy, and hopefully in this class what we'll do is help people to connect to that energy. Wherever that is, there's an amazing energetic frequency that we all have. And it's allowing that connection, and we connect to each other with that frequency, and that is, but that whole, when I've been with patients and I've walked, many patients to the end of life, and to watch that human spirit, just as it evolves. I lost a husband to cancer, and I was pregnant with our son. I have a lot of stories in my own existence of what has happened along my way, and the importance of finding these different kind of powerful messages that have come in for me to help me to get to heal and to help others. Because the stories alone, when I reach out with some of my stories, it really is a connection to other folks, because they can identify with where you are. And so I think a lot of this in this community, hopefully we can do that with each other. We can identify each other's stories, help with each other's stories, and help bring up that frequency, that connection, that human spirit, that life force that is so incredibly powerful, and embracing that and understanding that, to get it to flow again. And sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect in that. Jess, what do you think?
I really appreciate you sharing that, Lynn, and lots of love to your mom. She is a trooper.
Yeah.
And even going through those extreme conditions, still bringing in, there's an integrative piece, right? There's another piece that goes beyond what we can see and understand, and it leaves a lot of room for being curious, right? And letting things just be an expression and exploring more. But there was an email that came in here from Liz. I think this is a great question, and I'd love your feedback, especially with all the counseling you do with your patients over the years, Lynn. Is when facing an unexpected diagnosis, how do you ground yourself in not making emotional decisions?
Oh, that's a great question, because I think it comes in stages, number one. And the emotional decisions, and I guess I would ask, are you afraid you're going to get carried away by the emotional decisions? And the other piece of that is sometimes those emotions, to let them come out, because they're expressions of where you are in that moment, and they're powerful. I can remember when I was diagnosed, and I've been diagnosed a couple times with cancer now. And just the terror in that alone. And in this last episode that I went through, sitting down at the table with my son, one of the instances, and I don't know if this answers the question or not, I hope it helps. But there were moments when I was really struggling with my own mortality. And I looked at him, and I felt terrible because he lost his dad. He never knew his dad. His dad was born 6 weeks. He was born 6 weeks before his dad passed. So he didn't really know his father. And his dad was a wonderful man. And so anyway, so I sat down with him at the table, and I was really consumed by emotion. And I didn't want to be responsible for hurting him again. And that sounds, because it is what it is. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, you just have to have hope. And I thought, oh my God, here's my son, and he's in his 30s now. And he gave me that, and it was such a wonderful message. So I think that's the other piece, is that your emotions are okay uh, when you get a leveling diagnosis, because they are out there. And I think what it did for me is it connected me even more so to myself. So allow yourself to be who you are in that. And I think that that's important, if that makes any sense at all, because I think when you're out in the wilderness, right? You get that diagnosis and you're out in the wilderness. There's all of these different pieces of information. There's all of these different aspects of fear that comes in, and it's sorting through all of that. And to stay grounded, I think a lot of what kept me grounded is I really dove into a lot of the spiritual practice that I have. I really went into a lot more reading. On a spiritual level, I got into Joe Dispenza and I did some body talk, and I did different things in connection or in combination with that diagnosis. Um, and maybe I'll share eventually what it was, because I went through a lot last year. And so it's daunting, it's powerful, but it's also an opportunity for you to really get to know who you are, and to really, really stand in that, which sounds odd, but it is. It's an opportunity to open the doors to awareness, and to open the doors to your own reality as a human being. And you're wonderful, whatever that means to you. I don't know what the diagnosis is. I've seen women get handed diagnoses of breast cancer when I worked with breast cancer patients, and part of my role, because I was the NP, I worked with the doc, and he'd send me in the room after he had told them whatever they were going to go through, and then I'd go in the room and kind of pick up the pieces and sit down and talk with them about their story, basically, because we all have one. And I've said that multiple times in these conversations. Another question in that direction. I don't know if that helps or not, but
Oh, I love you sharing that, Lynn. Yeah, that your stories always touch the heart. And so I love your storytelling ability. It's interesting how I interpreted that question was in exploring integrative methods, and not making a decision by, going maybe a route where it's not going to produce results, right? Like there's different methods and modalities that, whatever it falls under, breath work or energy medicine or Reiki or whatever it might be, that's not medically vetted, if you will. Although there's medical Reiki, right? There's different levels. But it's interesting. I interpreted that as, oh gosh, she is maybe in. And again, if you want to email back and give more clarification, really appreciate you reaching out, and know that we're with you through this. Anything unexpected is another opportunity to meet your strength and move through it, and you're not alone. And whatever might come up as a method to explore more of it, I think feeling into your own yes and no, and if the emotions don't allow you to discern that, I would say, who do you trust? Who do you know to give you a recommendation of someone that they have a rapport with or experience with? And that's where that took me. But I think, all decisions are emotional, right? Like, maybe not all, but there's always an emotional component to the decision, and getting to that underlying, okay, if all these emotions are coming up here, what then can we integratively approach to help give those emotions shape, form, and let them transform?
one of my dear, dear friends is a psychotherapist, and she lost her husband last year. Young, very young. She found him at home. And
Sorry.
they've been dear friends of mine for ever. I mean, they were with me out in these mountains, actually. And and it was just, and I went over to see her at her mom's, and she was just um I don't want to say hysterical, but the emotions were just emanating from her. She was shaking, she was, and it was interesting because I hugged her and I said something to her, and she said to me in response, she said, "I just have to let all of this out because it's going to do more damage in than it's going to go if I let it out." And I think that that's something also to recognize, is that oftentimes when we we stuff it, right? If we stuff it, then we end up with GI problems, right? Because we're stuffing it in our gut. And so I think that that's the other piece that's so powerful, is that if you can if you can let it out and recognize there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, right? And sometimes we do get, I don't know, whatever the moment of, women have been coined with hysteria for years, right? Back in the in the old ages, they called it hysteria. Women got coined with hysteria. But if you can let it out in some safe form, um, whatever that is, and I guess the other thing I would say is journal like crazy right now if you can. Journal your thoughts, journal your feelings, and develop a gratitude journal. I mean, that was a big deal for me. I go back to that all the time. But to really look at and really explore where you are in all of this, and to listen to your, as Jess said, to listen to your yes and no's, because they will guide you. It's like this integrative thing that came up for me. And I can remember calling Dr. Suzanne. And the interesting thing about talking to Dr. Suzanne, when I talked to Dr. Suzanne, and I brought this up in my own personal episode when we talked about breast cancer, and Suzanne gave me the research, the German research that gave me the research to bring to my medical provider. And actually, I had him order a test for me that wasn't being done routinely. And he looked at me and it was like he was kind of taken aback. He had to put in a drawer because insurance was not reimbursing for that test. And so I asked him to do it anyway. And it was really interesting because this test became predominant in where women are as far as recurrence and that type of thing. And this was years later. But it was interesting because I was guided by, it's like things line up for you, and it's like serendipity, or those events line up for you, and pay attention to those events because they're important. You know, again, as Jess said, listening to those yes and no's. Trust your intuition.
I
Uh,
have an email reply here from Connie. She's asking, what modality would you start to explore if integrative medicine is new to you? That's a great question. Wow. Take
yeah,
your pick. Like, what interests you? What are you called to explore more? What are you finding coming in across your desk, if you will? Um,
yeah.
yeah, right?
It depends on, it's like where I started was with massage. I not only learned to do massage, but I started with massage, and then started integrating all the different components as I was working with Suzanne, and really got into kinesiology and muscle testing and that type of thing. But that was later, and as I worked with Suzanne and with Jess, I learned that I wanted to know more. But yeah, I think that's a great answer. You get to where you're comfortable, and you have to find the right provider that makes. It's like it's having a conscious conversation. You're gonna feel if this person is right for you or not. It's like when you meet a friend, right? You kind of meet a friend, and your energies line up, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes,
absolutely. Some people they're like, yes, I like you.
yeah. Yeah, right? You attract, likes attract. Uh,
The other thing too that I just want to point out is some providers will obviously do the best and want the best, but they might not know how your body is going to respond. So just take massage. We'll work off of that, right? There's different styles of massage, deep tissue, light touch, different areas of focus. And the piece is you're the one in your body, right? So having that open pathway of communication where you're able to say, oh, that's actually too hard, instead of like just try to grin through and bear it because that's what they're doing or what have you. So I feel like making sure you're still voicing how you're feeling throughout the process so that you know that the person you're working with is receiving that and adjusting accordingly, right? Anyone can want the best, but they might not have the best technique for you. So it is really so individualized. I would say start with something that feels good to you, no matter how it's going to turn out, what the result is, that you feel good that you tried something and you went past your comfort zone. And gosh, there's so many different modalities. I'm not thinking of one specifically. Massage is great though, right?
Massage is a great place. Acupuncture is another great place to start. A lot of times, um, people have needle phobias, and so they don't want to do acupuncture because they're afraid of the needle phobia. A lot of now your physical therapists do what they call dry needling, um, but the needles are tiny, and it's interesting. That was the other thing that happened when I had breast cancer. I was going to my acupuncturist, and I kept getting these palpitations, and I couldn't figure out before I was actually diagnosed. And I was getting these palpitations and getting palpitations. I'm like, what the? And my dad would ask me, he was alive at the time. Oops. And I forgot to turn my phone off. Sorry. And um I'll be right back. Hang on, hold that thought.
Mute yourself, otherwise everybody's gonna know what's happening. Okay, so we'll keep the show going here. And for me, I remember the first time I tried a new modality, it literally did come across my desk. There was a flyer, synchronistically enough, at an acupuncturist office. They were offering a 1-day course, Body Talk Access, and it was just a yes within me. Like I had to explore more. It was on a Sunday morning early. I got up, I was like, what am I doing getting up? I don't want to miss it though. So I just had that drive in me to go and find out. And I remember the first time my name got picked at the end of the class to experience the full body talk session. So I'm on the massage table in the acupuncturist office in front of the class. There are probably maybe a good 8 women there, a really nice group of people. And the things that were coming up through the facilitation of the session, I was like, how is he doing this? How did the practitioner, the instructor, why does he know these specific things about me that are really like, how are you doing this? How do you know? And so maybe there's a modality that is going to interest you so much that then you'll be able to pass it on too, right? And that's one of my visions, is that those that are in healthcare now expanding the body's intelligence, the way we communicate and interact with that, and bringing in those other intuitive pieces, and those that have a passion and an interest can excel in that too, and provide healthcare in their community and offer different ways to feel into the possibility of health.
But it's like Suzanne, when I worked with Suzanne and I learned muscle testing, right? And I started going to the conferences and started to learn nutrition and started to do all those different components, and actually incorporated that practice into my practice with a community agency when I was doing blood work and I was doing different things and doing corporate wellness and seeing patients from a wellness perspective. And then from there, I would do blood work, and then I'd start to incorporate muscle testing, or not. I could incorporate the nutrition into their regimen if they were willing to be open to that. And so it was interesting. It does expand. You can expand that, which I've done it. And it's fun. I've taken it into my students. And, at the end of a semester, especially with my nursing students when I was teaching for UW Milwaukee, and I'd walk in with my test kit, which is big, and I'd take it in, I'd open it up on the table, and then I'd muscle test them. And without fail, they were all way overstressed and their adrenals were fried and all that kind of stuff. So you're like, but it was so funny because they were so surprised. And I wanted to introduce this kind of work so that they had a recognition, because not only did they need to be aware, but their patients are doing it. It's like that's the important thing. So yeah, finding the right method. And I think it's fun. It's exploring a whole nother realm of how you can feel better. And it really is going back to all about that energy, going back to my acupuncturist. And what really connected me, I was having palpitations before I was actually diagnosed. So it was a few years later, and I was looking at her acupuncture chart in her office, and I looked at the pericardium line, which runs at your heart line, and it runs through your breast. And I'm like, "Oh, no wonder I was having palpitations, because that tumor was sitting right on that breast. It was sitting right on that pericardium line." And so my body was trying to tell me what was happening. I just didn't understand what it was doing. I knew it was doing something. I just didn't know what it was. And so it was after I had all these other things done. And then it was really that integrative piece again that showed me, oh, look at that. You know, how interesting that is, because your body's always talking to you. You just have to figure out what it's trying to tell you. And it's like when I'm doing work with Joe Dispenza, or listening to Joe Dispenza and a lot of his work, he's talking about you have to reset yourself every day because we become our patterns of behavior, right? So there's a lot of different ways to explore this and get into it. Sometimes you can just pick up good books. They say go into a bookstore, and if a book falls off the shelf, pick it up because it's meant for you, right? Same thing. Same thing with and I don't know if that's happened to anybody else. That's happened to me with integrative therapy. You know, it's just it's a whole exploration of wonderful practitioners oftentimes that are doing a whole other method of treatment. So find what makes you comfortable and read maybe, you know, and explore that way, and then go in and see. But
Yeah,
thanks for the question.
I know, this is awesome. There's a question from Jody. How do you have a conscious conversation with your healthcare provider in 2 minutes? Um, great question, right?
Oh,
Thank
that's
you, Jody.
I'll tell you.
Yeah,
Oh,
take the mic.
oh golly. I just again yesterday I was having this conversation with my master's student, and we were exploring this because he was in a setting, and I had to talk, and I'll share a little story. I was talking to his preceptor and him, and his preceptor was saying he should be better assessed. But this guy's got a lot of experience. He's really amazing when I talked to him on the side, and he's been connecting with me all semester. And so when she said that, and then after she got done, and I went through, you know, and he really is doing a great job because he's really willing to learn. But afterward, he said to me, he said, "They're moving so fast." And I'm like, "I know." And so I said, I can get on my soapbox and my personal biases about that. It is a challenging way to negotiate. And I guess what I would do is I would ask in that if you could have a few additional minutes or set up an appointment where you could have like a 15-minute consultation or whatever it is, because there's different ways that they can set up appointments for you,
Okay.
that you can do that in the healthcare system. If it's a wellness appointment or whatever it is, if you want to have that dialogue, ask for that in that 2-minute discussion. Say, I need to have, you know, and then schedule that as quickly as you can. Sometimes it's trickier than others. And especially in family practice and with your GPs and stuff, they're moving fast, your NPs. And it's like, I would ask for that. I would ask for that additional time. You may not get it in that visit, but you could ask for another visit that you want to, whatever the problem is, you know, that you want additional time to explore that and have that conversation.
I love that. That's great. Thanks, Lynn. So integrative medicine, conscious conversations with your healthcare provider, it really does boil down to you, what your goals are, what you're coming in with, what you want to get out of what results you're looking for to experience in day-to-day life. What is your definition of health, and what are you doing to actively participate in it? I think integrative medicine, how would you define integrative medicine, Lynn?
Oh, golly. Oops. Okay. That was my computer. Anyway, I would describe integrative medicine as a process of combining different modalities of treatment with the whole. And you know, it is when you look at even I look at I call it a team sport when we're in the hospital, and when I'm teaching my undergrad students, I'm like, who's on your team? Who's playing on your team? It's a team sport. Do you have a respiratory therapist, social worker, physical therapist, cardiologist? Who's on your team? It's a team sport. That's an integrative piece. They call it something a little bit different in medicine. But what you have to do with integrative medicine is who's on your team, right? Is it your massage therapist? Is it your acupuncturist? Is it your primary care doc? Is it whoever it is? If you're dealing with some kind of catastrophic healthcare issue, is it that team, that's also a part of your team? When I worked down at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, they were great because they had an integrative team. They automatically plugged in the nutritionist, and they plugged in the naturopath, and if you wanted to get a massage or a Reiki therapist or um, acupuncturist, they had all those different components that you could plug into your team for treatment. So that's what I look at as an integrative team. Right now we're part of your integrative team. As providers, we're kind of those team players. We're not here really to replace your healthcare, but we're here to help educate and maybe help you to bridge some of those relationships so that you can have those conscious conversations, or you can build your integrative team, right? So I think an integrative team is who's ever playing on your team in whatever position that you need to have them be, because it's your choice. It really is about owning your healthcare. That's what this is about, right? That's why you're here. That's why we're doing this. It really is about that. It's owning your healthcare and taking responsibility for the decisions that you're making that are important to you to give you better quality of life. That's really the key.
And I do hope that you are finding yourself inspired today to feel into what other possibilities can be in creating that optimal health for you and owning your healthcare in everything you do, physical, mental, emotional, creative, and really nurturing all parts of yourself. That it's the little things that make a big difference sometimes, right? And it's the little things that can start to add up and make the shift for you. So keep putting that change in the piggy bank of your billion-dollar body. You have a priceless work of art right within your own hands. And there's so much to explore. And before we go here, Lynn, we have a few minutes left. Is there anything else you want to explore more with conscious conversations with healthcare providers, with integrative medicine, our top 2 topics there on the survey?
Well, I think one of the things that is, or one of the most important parts of this, is that for people to recognize there's only one you, right? In all of this, we're all unique. We're all amazing, and wonderful pieces, as you said, pieces of art, because we are. And so in the grand design, to recognize that we are a grand design. And the other piece that I want to really, from the bottom of my heart, I am thrilled that people are here with us. It brings tears. I'm tears of joy are just sitting behind my eyes right now, because I'm just, thank you for showing up and for being here and supporting us, and we're supporting you, and for being a part of this blossoming community, because we're going to nurture it. I'm a gardener. I have a big garden in the backyard. And as I said in one of the talks, when somebody said to me, "What did you do when you got that diagnosis?" I said, "I was out digging in the dirt because I wanted my hands in the earth. I wanted that connection to Mother Nature. And so that gives me strength and power. Nature gives me a lot of feedback and energy. Um, so I just want to thank the people that are here, and know that we're here to support you. And I'm thrilled. Joss, aren't you thrilled? This
Lynn,
is
I
the
think you're amazing. I really just honor how much you continue to put into your life's work and your passion and passing this on to people, and instilling that enthusiasm in that generation of health consciousness that's going to continue to lead the way. And you are no doubt your mother's daughter with how much fire you have in you, and you're always, 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 always I'm gonna get the clip now too. So hold on, guys. Sorry. I'm getting all
Well,
emotional.
thank you. I just, it's interesting because I always pray when, I always say ask for divine direction, um, about where I'm supposed to be called to. Because I always tell students, I didn't pick nursing. I did not pick that job. And I had a crazy path. I think I shared my story, but I am so incredibly grateful that I am in service to others. And that's the piece. And I'm so incredibly grateful for your partnership, Miss Jess, because we've been partners for a long time. Jess has been saving the world for a long time. And, and so she would get a little disheartened that, she wonders what happens, but she's an active participant in saving the world. That's, you know, one person at a time. And so that's it. I can remember saying when I was caring for people, it was always one person at a time. And when I got called to teaching, and I can remember sitting down on my couch and crying because I was so concerned that I wouldn't give students the right message and that I wouldn't give them enough, just like patients. I was afraid that I'd say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or, that student, you go through what they call an imposter syndrome. I always tell them, you put on that lab coat and you got to figure out where you are in the world with this. But gosh, I'm grateful. I am incredibly grateful for you, Justin, incredibly grateful for the opportunity and incredibly grateful for this blossoming program that we're going to nurture and grow. And thank you to the people that showed up today.
Thank you everyone for participating and being a presence here. You are so important, and there are so many ways that you can find what works for you. If you have any questions, more specifically, anything that comes to mind, you can always reach out and be in touch. And we are here. We'll keep building. We'll keep on with our growth, right? We're all just here growing and learning, and what else can we show up and experience today? And thank you for being a part of this Own Your Healthcare Masterclass experience with us today. Yay, we made it. And really, 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 really happy to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Really, it's really all about you. Remember that. It's really all about you because that's why we're here. So thanks
Lots
for
of love, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
the love. Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.